I mean, we had better music, I'll say that. But anyway, so
Yeah. We're talking about a movie called Popcorn.
from the 90s.
Yeah, from 91. I honestly thought this was an 80s movie, but it was not.
I,
So,
I feel like I did too.
yeah.
And it's just one of those things that it must have just been on the back of so many comic books during that period that I just felt like if it wasn't Sleepwalkers, it was this.
Yeah, I like this poster and like the Sleepwalkers poster, I vividly remember because you're right. It was like everywhere, you know. But this one, more surprising that it was everywhere. I mean, I do like the poster. I think the poster looks awesome. And the title, how they did that is really cool, you know.
What makes you say it was surprising that the poster was everywhere?
Oh, because Popcorn is like an independent-ish movie, and like Sleepwalkers is a studio movie, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So with this, the difference is like studio movies get tons of money for advertising, whereas like an independent film has kind of got to, you
Yeah,
know,
no, I see what you
not
mean. Yeah,
spend all their money. But it just
right.
seems like those were so prevalent. It was like the same, distributed by the same company, but they weren't,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So
Well, yeah, and for an independent production, it must have been kind of you know, Jamaican Los Angeles kind of crossover
yeah,
film where
can't
we know we can film
Jamaica.
here for a cheaper amount of money and release it in America because they did have a lot of people who were, I mean, you had America's Mom, Dee Wallace, in there,
Yeah. Yep.
famous from E.T. as the mom in this. Kelly Jo Mittner, she was in Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5.
And
Uh,
Summer School. You remember that movie? Remember
I
Summer
do
School?
remember Summer School, yeah,
Yeah, she
where
was in
the
that too.
the teacher was playing Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, yeah. Like
Wow.
the two goofball kids were like, "Oh, this is what we do," and they're like shoving pencils through their eyeballs and shit, and they're like, "It's just a joke. We're
Yeah.
not really killing each other." Yeah. So yeah, Summer School. That's a fun movie. Anyways, yeah, I remembered her from that because I've seen Summer School so many times. That was like a that was like a childhood movie. I watched that a lot growing up. So, but I remembered her voice more than like I was like, yeah, her voice is really familiar. Where do I? Because it's like not too many people have a raspy voice like that. You know, that sounds like they're trying so hard to talk that it's about to go silent. You know,
Hmm.
so but yeah. Anyways,
Yeah, I should probably know her from that because I know I've seen Summer School more times than I've seen Elm Street 5,
right.
which is legitimately, I think, the only one of the series that I don't like.
It's been forever since I've seen 5. I usually skip right over it, you know, and go to like Freddy's Dead and then, you know, New Nightmare. I've seen probably like 1, 3, and New Nightmare the most of those movies. So,
Okay.
because New Nightmare was the first one I saw in the theaters. So that was a big deal. It's
Hmm.
a huge deal. Even though it's not really a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. It is, but it's not,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I kind of give that one a pass too. Not that it's a bad movie, I just consider it existing outside the series. So whenever I get in that Elm Street mood, like I kind of have been lately, I watched 4, skipped over 5, and then Freddy's Dead this weekend. But yeah, New Nightmare I just feel like kind of exists outside the series because it's its own continuity and it steps
Yeah.
outside of itself to make a comment that it's worth making and it's a good movie. It's just for whatever reason doesn't feel like it
Oh, it's
gels with the
totally
rest of them.
compartmentalized away from the rest of them. You know, like I like it, but
Hmm.
it's not like when I think of Nightmare, it's like 1 through 5, you know, not that one,
One
you
through
know.
six.
No, because I don't
Yeah,
particularly like 6.
you don't
So
you don't like 5 either, so it just ends at 4 for you.
yeah, I guess so. I
Okay,
guess so.
fair enough. Yeah, do you think there was ever an idea to turn this into a franchise?
I feel like it. Like I really do because there's so many like things in this movie that like go nowhere where I feel like it should have gone somewhere. You know, like there is the whole face thing, which is confusing at times, the
Hmm.
face swapping. but I feel like that is a device that could easily go into other movies and call it like repopped or something like that. Where it's
A
just the
bigger
new.
bucket.
Yeah, yep, exactly.
Popcorn too, extra butter. I mean,
Right. No salt. Like I don't know, whatever. I do feel like that it was set up kind of, or the idea was there to have it keep going because like, I mean, Jesus, how many other franchises just keep getting movies that we're like, well, okay, how many new ideas? Oh, none. You don't have any new ideas for this. You're just retreading the same thing. You see
mhm,
it all the time. I mean,
yeah.
good Lord. Hellraiser's got like 9 of them,
Well,
so.
no, I asked because this doesn't really end with a cliffhanger and everything's pretty well resolved. The villain doesn't come back. It just seems like they went to great lengths to try to create an interesting villain, but they pretty definitively killed him off.
Oh yeah. He was
Which,
dying for like 2 minutes on screen. It was a while because he gets stabbed and then he's just like, oh, by the mosquito, and that keeps going and going. It's like, yeah,
yeah,
we got it. He's stabbed. He's impaled.
that was
Let's
kind of
move
a
on.
running theme with this movie where the all of the deaths went on for
Oh yeah.
sustained periods of time. Because like even when the teacher, because he's the first one who gets killed by the mosquito, and it's like the round nose, I don't know,
Yeah,
impales him
let's
somehow.
describe how we get to this mosquito first. I guess let's go back so people, if you haven't watched the movie or don't plan to, then you kind of know what's going on because we're just talking about this giant mosquito, and it's like a real giant mosquito. No, it's a fake one.
Okay,
So
yeah. So
maybe we go
the
back
the
and like set
setup
up.
of the
Yeah.
movie would be
Well, it's a little convoluted. Let's talk about the students first. So there's a new film
okay. I
department.
got it. I got it.
Yeah.
So a bunch of film students put on a horror movie festival only to find themselves stalked and knocked off one at a time by a deranged murderer.
Yes. Yes.
That's
And
that's popcorn in a nutshell.
yeah, in a nutshell. And then the other one, the other layer is the cult leader who made a movie. In setting up this film festival, they find uh a reel of a short film and they're like, let's play it. And it turns out to be this snuff film of a cult leader who kills his wife, uh and then like the act is like they perform the next act live in front of a studio audience, I guess, and it goes haywire.
It does
So
not go
there's
well.
yeah, it's well, like as one does, they don't really want people don't want to see murders.
Hmm.
They don't want that. So the murder was stopped, the theater was set on fire, and the cult leader died. So who's the murderer? you know?
Hmm.
And that's what the those two things are. So the film festival's going on, and then there's killings that are happening that are connected to this cult leader.
Right. The movie being called Possessor.
Yes. Yeah. Possessor.
Man, that I was getting so strong vibes of that art show film from Valentine with
Oh my
just the
God.
close-ups of the mouth and then like the
Yes.
eyeball and just like, man, yeah, that is an art show film if I've ever seen one.
Yeah. Close up of eyeballs, teeth. I think there was someone pulling apart like skin over their face or
Possessor,
something like that.
possess,
Yeah.
possess,
Yeah,
possessor.
we heard that. Yeah, like that was pretty funny because the guy in the possessor thing just keeps saying possessor like over and
Yeah.
over again, and one person who's watching it's like, yeah, we heard it. Yeah, we know.
She's
Uh,
my favorite character. I'm blanking on her name, but she goes on to play the nurse at the film
yeah,
festival because
Nurse Ratchet.
they
Yeah.
all have like different little costumes, and some of them are kind of like glammed up ushers, and yeah, and
Oh,
she's like the nurse Ratchet, and they've got like a mental patient character.
yes. I love the look of this theater. I want this theater to actually exist. It sucks that they filmed it in Jamaica because that's nowhere close to where we are at right now,
Hmm.
you know. But man, I at one point wanted to own a movie theater like this. I just think that this would be so fucking cool to have like this old school movie theater with a balcony and just show old school movies. It's a horrible business model because you're not going to make any money, but man,
Well,
would it be awesome.
yeah, especially today when you only have the one screen.
I know. Yeah. It's not happening. But yeah,
Yeah, that
still love to
song
have it.
too that they were playing about, Saturday night at the movies. We don't care what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just such a byproduct of that era because it wasn't like you could just turn on your Netflix and if it didn't entertain you within 10 seconds, you move to the next thing. It's like,
Right.
no, you went out to the movies with your friends and like that was just like hanging out at the mall or anything. And
Dude, the ritual so changed so much, man.
mhm.
Like I remember like going to like what when we decided friends of mine and the group like what we were doing Friday, Saturday night, it was like, oh, what's playing? You actually had to go buy a newspaper because there was no internet. And then you just like flip to the back of them and you would
No,
just hope to God that the theater in your neighborhood was in that newspaper,
but there
you
was
know?
movie phone.
Oh God. Yeah. Oh yes. You call the movie theater and you just listen to a pre-recorded message and they just listed off the movies that were playing and the
That's
times.
right. Yep.
Yep.
Popcorn,
Yeah.
8:30, 8:15,
Yeah.
8:45.
Oh my God. What a flashback. I remember that. It was such a pain. Looking back at it, it's such a pain in the ass to live like life like that, right? Because it's so slow. Whereas like now we can just like show times near me, and Google's like, oh, here, what theater do you want to go to? I'll show you times in Detroit, even though that's 90 minutes away.
Oh
Like, what
yeah,
do you want?
right.
Where do you want to go? What movie you want to see?
Hmm.
You know, you want to see it at an AMC or do you want to see it at some art house shit? Like or whatever. So it's crazy. But then yeah, so what you heard is what you got, and if the movie wasn't there, you missed it. It's gone.
Yeah.
Wait till you could rent it in a year.
And there wasn't assigned seating, so you didn't know if it was going to be sold out or
Right. Right.
whatnot.
Here's a weird thing that's like so it can't even happen anymore. So when you remember Triple X with Vin Diesel? You remember that? And then like
Unfortunately,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I agree. And then the sequel, which was State of the Union, but it
Mm,
didn't have Vin Diesel in it. It had
mm-hmm,
Ice Cube,
mm-hmm.
right? So like at the time, I mean that was like early 2000s, and at the time like there was a waiting period. There was a long waiting period between like when a movie ended in the theaters to when it actually came out on VHS or DVD, right? And sometimes it was a while, 6 to 9 months maybe,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and then but at the time like Triple X State of the Union was so torn apart by critics and everybody who saw it, right? Like it was not a beloved movie, that it broke the record for like fastest in theater to DVD release, which was like 7 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Wow.
Which is lightning fast for a movie at the time. But now that's like kind of standard, right? Like
Well, it's
it's like
especially
pretty
in
quick.
pandemic era because I think what's become sort of standard is theatrical release, 45 days to streaming, and then it's about 3 months until at least
Yeah.
3-4 months
Yeah.
until because it's yeah I'd say you get about a 6-week window with streaming too before it goes to DVD. But
Yeah, but it just seems like that's so standard now, where it's like 6 to 7 weeks was like, look at these fools over here.
well, back
Their
then,
shit
yeah,
sucks so bad.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, back then. Yeah, only like 15 years ago. So it feels like a different era,
Well,
and it's only,
no, it is totally different, and I mean, it's crazy to think about how much that's even changed within the last 3 years because the idea of something hitting streaming 45 days from the fact that it came out in the theater is unheard of.
Yes, I
Just
agree.
2 years ago, and that's just something that the movie industry has done to try and maximize their profit during the whole pandemic COVID thing. But
Well, yeah, part of it's because like physical media is going away. It's just how it is. Like, I was listening to a podcast and Matt Damon was talking about this, and it was really kind of like eye opening because he said like he was talking about the reasons why studios aren't taking as many chances with certain movies, right? Or certain types of movies anymore. And he was saying like, well, you had your theatrical release and then you basically had a second softer release once it was pushed out on physical media. So he's like, and sometimes the physical media was like a greater resource of revenue than ticket sales were. And now that we don't have that because of streaming, that push isn't there. So it's like they have to make their money right at the box office instead of getting it later on a DVD or Blu-ray release. And it's really interesting, and it's changing the dynamic of what movies we're seeing in theaters, which is unfortunate. Like I think we're kind of done with the days of like stuff coming out like Fight Club or 12 Monkeys or something like that, that are a little bit more risky. So it's unfortunate.
So Popcorn wouldn't have come out in this environment, you don't think? That would have been straight to Shutter release, probably.
Yes. I'm not saying that this movie wouldn't get made. It probably would have get made
but the
today,
release would have been totally different.
The release would be like, Shutter exclusive, So
who else was in this was Joel Schulen. I can't say her last name. She was in Stepfather and A Stranger Calls Back.
Oh yeah.
She was Maggie. So she was the daughter of the cult leader that you mentioned earlier, of Lanyard Gates.
Yeah.
Am I the only one that finds that ridiculous? I mean, not the Gates
think it's
part,
ridiculous.
But just the fact that the guy's name is Lanyard.
You mean my name badge necklace lanyard? That kind of lanyard? Yeah. No, It's ridiculous. It's so like of all the names, they're like Lanyard. That's the ticket. Lanyard Gates. Yeah, that's a cult leader. Still, I was hung up on Lanyard Gates for a while. It's like Lanyard Gates. Why? Lanyard Gates.
I mean, you have no option other than to grow up and be a crazy person if that's your name.
I often wonder about that, right? Like sometimes I think like the name of a person is more powerful than genetics, because there's just certain names where it's like, yeah, no one good has ever been, named that,
Oh yeah.
I can't think of any examples right now.
Well, and just to bring up Elm Street again, that's why Wes Craven named Freddy Krueger, was because there was a kid named Fred that used to beat him up.
Okay. Yeah. See? Yeah. And it's simply because that person was named Fred, not that like
it was Krueger. That's what it was. He knew someone with the name of Krueger, and they used to beat him up because that's why he named the guy Krug in Last House on the Left.
Oh.
And then you get Krueger and then come up with the first name. But yeah, no, I agree with you. There's just certain names where like you're writing something and you're like, yep, that's a bad guy name.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly.
Lanyard, though, I don't know. I'm not sold on that one. I really don't have anything else to go on as far as picking on the whole Lanyard thing, other than it's just a weird choice. But there's a couple weird choices in this movie, though.
A couple? I mean, there's a lot of weird choices.
Good.
There's many.
This movie was your suggestion.
Yeah.
I had always wanted to see it, and then I saw that it would just happen to be on Shudder there. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was a great time to talk about it. But you had said that you had seen this, like this was one of your movies growing up.
Yep. My sister and I think we caught it on HBO in the early 90s, so after its theatrical release, but it must have been like quickly afterwards, because I remember it when I was fairly young, and if it came out in 91, that would put me at 10 or 11, No, but we loved this movie at the time. We thought it was crazy. It was wild, but we like the environment. Like we always love going to movie theaters and seeing a movie that's creepy like this and kind of scary.
Hmm.
Definitely more scary as a kid. This isn't really a scary movie now, but when you see the face reveal of Toby, you're just like, whoa, that's crazy. And then
Yeah.
we kind of like the movies within the movie. We like that aspect. So this was like a fun ride, as a kid because your imagination's just going crazy.
Right.
So,
Well, and the movies within the movies were all like very specific.
mm-hmm.
Um,
Throwbacks to like
well,
50s movies.
yeah,
Yeah.
homages to movies that actually existed, because the first one that they show, Mosquito, it is exactly this movie called The Beginning of the End, which was this giant grasshopper movie. And I Mosquito looks better than The Beginning of the
Yeah.
End looks, because in Beginning of the End, like they had real cockroaches, but they were using just the cheapest tricks possible.
Yeah.
And I mean,
I
like
would imagine.
they're supposed to be climbing buildings, and I shit you not, it's like they have they're photographing a postcard as the cricket or what cockroach climbs up the thing, and then you cut to like the people in the building, like, oh god. So yeah, what they were doing with Mosquito was miles ahead, even though it was a parody. But like even that office that they're in, like when they're in the building where it's the reporter with like the guy with the leather, like the bomber jacket on, and I
Yeah.
got the army guy. That's straight out of that movie. I mean, like they took that set and those costumes and put it over here. Like that's not a coincidence.
That's awesome. No, I thought that they were so fun to watch. And then the interplay with like the dialogue or action that's in these fake movies is like being referenced in the deaths of other people,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
in the movie theater. Like with the guy who was electrocuted, did some crime. Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
So now we can talk about the giant mosquito.
Yes, that's where the giant mosquito comes in. It's because it's in these. Well, it's interesting because like, I mean, maybe people don't know about this, so we can talk about it. But like, movies had gimmicks for a while. You know, they would come with something like there's a famous one, and I thought like Vincent Price was in it. The Tingler, yeah, where it was like this creature was running amok in this movie, right? And it was
Mm-hmm.
basically a giant centipede, I guess. I'm
Yeah,
saying
pretty much.
giant, but like like large rodent sized or cat sized,
Mm-hmm.
But they had something to like bump into people's ankles in the theater. So
Yeah.
it's like you're thinking about like the Tingler and then like it coming and like bumping into you in the theater.
Yeah.
And then there was stuff like smell-o-vision and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Smell-o-vision was a real thing. The Tingler and what you're talking about, that was a guy by the name of William Castle, and he made a whole industry on that, of like the gimmicky movies, and probably his biggest one was the House on Haunted Hill.
Oh man.
And they were signing the waivers out front of their film festival in this movie
Yes.
about, oh, we're not liable if you die, or we're
Yeah.
taking people's blood pressure, things like that. And like William Castle actually did that with his movies, where we'll give a free funeral to anyone who dies of fright while watching this movie.
Wow.
Like that was an actual thing, which of course nobody
And
did
people
because the
like,
movies were
yes.
hokey as shit. But
Yeah.
it was just a thing to get the people in the theater.
Yeah, you could die from this. Do you want to see it? Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yes, of course.
It's the video from The Ring. Oh my god.
Yeah. So but the mosquito, there is a giant mosquito hanging from some sort of wiring in this movie, and that is actually used as a deadly weapon. But it's flying around during the mosquito movie.
Right.
So that was the gimmick for it.
So yeah, this guy comes in to help the film students with setting up the festival, and he
Yes.
supposedly owns some museum of movie memorabilia.
Yes.
Turns out he's the man of 1,000 faces, the killer in disguise, and that's why all the props are kind of he knows how to use them all, but they're also kind of rigged in order to murder people.
I didn't catch that part. I thought Toby was the guy who was always the guy, you know, like, but it was the old man
Didn't
was
he
the
have a
killer.
Mission Impossible reveal where he took the mask off there and that was Toby? That he was just
Yeah,
playing a
but
character?
Toby, but yes, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. But Toby is just one of the students, not the guy that runs the uh, prop museum.
He didn't
That's
play the guy from the prop museum?
no.
Did I just fabricate that whole thing?
Yeah, I got a little confused.
Because
No, because
that
like
would have been great. I mean, that's
no,
why I
that
thought he just knew how to use all these things. And
makes perfect sense, right? Like if you did the movie like that, but that character, right? He has a huge introduction. I'm this guy.
no,
I'm
yeah,
so
no, I remember
important.
that. Yeah,
Like it was like,
it was like
hey,
P.T.
the
Barnum.
the feeling you get is like we need to pay attention to this guy. I'm talking about as like the watching the movie, right? Because they're making a big deal about this guy's introduction.
Mm-hmm.
He's never
You never
seen
see him again.
again after he sets up everything. Like so all like the props and stuff around, they got the popcorn machine, they got this really cool clock that I want to find out if that's real because I would love to purchase it. It screams at you whenever it turns to like the next time, so it goes from 7 to 8, it yells and screams at you, but it also is dripping blood out of the center, into a heart. Yeah, it's dripping, like the clock is alive and it's dripping blood into its own heart. That's dope. I want that, like, in my home,
I
you
need
know?
that in my life.
Yeah.
It's just in my soul. Get inside me right now.
Yeah.
See, that's why I thought that I don't know. I must have been taking a note or something like that, and then you see something with the killer, and that's why I thought that he replaced him, or that he was him, and but he was just playing the character because you never did see him again, and then you have this whole
Right.
Mission Impossible element, and he's got all this shit set up in the back room, and that's why I'm just like, oh, that's the same
It's
guy.
got to be him, right?
Yeah.
Because it's logically sound what you're
Okay.
talking about.
All right.
And that makes perfect sense, but that's not the case.
But you're wrong.
It would make more sense if he was the killer.
I feel like that's been happening a lot lately because, like, with Snakes on a Plane, when we were talking about that, you're like, that's a better idea, Brian. Why didn't they do that?
Well, it's true. I mean, there are plenty. I mean, like,
Oh,
your mind is you write your own shit, so it's like, yeah, like that. When you have a criticism of like, hey, I would have done it this way. It's like, yeah, that's better. That's better because it's like you've written your own shit. Like I can't come up with story beats or anything. Like, but when someone says like, yeah, this is what I would do, I'm like, yeah, that works better. That because I can like do surgery on what I've seen and see it, and I'm like, yeah, that makes more sense.
Okay.
So. But if you're asking me to write a story, oh my God, no shot. We're not getting anywhere. We're not having liftoff. We're not, winning any awards or anything. We're going to be a laughing stock because I, whatever. I don't know about things. So
it'll just be the clip of the kid falling off the mountain and Mac and me.
Yeah. Right. Yes.
That's what I wrote.
Yeah. That's my contribution. But I'll always be remembered, right?
There's always that.
So, what is it? Winners get remembered, legends never die.
Winners don't do drugs. That's the one that I know. But hey, so what do you think the second movie was supposed to be a reference to? The electrocution.
I have no idea because there's that one. What's the last one?
The Stench. And that one's more overtly the William Castle. Now he didn't do smell-o-vision. Someone I did actually do some research on this. Yeah, there was one and only movie to use smell-o-vision because there was several
problems with it.
Well, no, not just that, but like Odorama and Aromarama and like other knockoff I same ideas because they've been
Yeah.
trying to like do like smells and not movies, but apparently that dates back to like vaudeville and like theater plays in like the 1800s.
Oh wow.
Just the idea of like having a smell in the theater when something's going on, but part of the problem with it is like ventilation not always getting to people at the same time.
Right.
Theaters tend to have this overwhelming smell of popcorn.
Right.
So
I would imagine that like if your movie had multiple smells, you'd have smells on top of smells, which might not be a
right.
good thing, you
Right.
know?
Which is why, as it went on, they actually went to handing out scratch and sniff cards because that's what you want to do when you're watching a movie. Is number 9.
Yeah. Gross.
Um,
Just hearing people
as
inhale through their nose while in a theater just sounds disgusting.
well, yeah, they're either doing crack or the smell-o-vision thing. But so most recently that was even used in like Spy Kids 4. Was they were handing out like scratch and sniff cards for people to smell during the movie.
Yeah.
No thanks.
That's so lame.
I
That's just incredibly
I,
lame.
I don't want smells when I'm watching a movie. Thank you.
Yeah.
Especially the whole thing where you have to play your bingo card while you're watching the movie because now you're not watching the movie. You know.
Right. Yeah. And like movie theaters are dark, so how do you know which smell you're scratching? You know?
Well, yeah, that's why I was doing that thing where it like
Yeah.
because it's like really bright, but you look down and you can't see what's in front of you. That's
Yeah.
why I don't know how people like reporters must have used to been really good at like just knowing the notepad by feel in order to like take notes while a movie was on.
Right.
Because I've tried to do that once or twice for like academic things when I was in college. Like they'd send us to this fancy theater in Ann Arbor that was playing, Citizen Kane or The Bicycle Thief or, whatever avant-garde movie. It's like you have to watch because you're a film student and you're trying to take notes in the theater, and is I don't know, it's really difficult.
I've tried to take notes without looking at the paper. That's a nightmare. You know, like it looks so bad.
Especially when you read it back, it's like, oh man, I
Yeah.
nailed that. It felt so good.
Yeah,
And
I
then you
got
read
this
it
in the
back, and
bag.
it's like it looks
Yeah.
like one of those seismographs that are charting an earthquake.
Yeah, it's so confusing you forgot like what it is you wrote down, right? Like like seconds later you're like, wait, I don't even know what I wrote anymore. You know, like
Yeah.
what is this? Yeah, no, it doesn't look good. So I
But
always wanted to see a movie with some sort of gimmick like this though, like smell-o-vision, or what happened with the Tingler or something, you know?
yeah, the Tingler would have been interesting. I think some of the early 3D movies would have been as well. Yeah,
So,
they
oh,
definitely put some thought into that stuff with like having like a costume for the usher to kind of like just run down the aisle at a certain part. Nowadays, I don't know, people would probably freak out and trip them in the aisle or something like that. I'm sure that happened a lot back then too. You just didn't hear about it because they didn't have the internet.
right,
It's like you imagine like like you're watching this movie and like someone just like pops up in a skeleton costume. Like,
right, right. Did you happen to see like during the mosquito one, uh, like this mosquitoes flying around? Did you happen to see the crazy guy, like at the front who gets injected by Nurse Ratchet? He was running around with like a huge bug killer, like spray can, like the size of him. And I was like, man, they really need to like focus on him for a minute because that's really funny because you see him like the mosquito comes in and then there's this shot that's like looking down
mhm.
at everyone in the theater. And off to the side, you see him like running down the aisle with this
Yeah.
giant can of bug killer.
Yeah, no, I missed that.
It's really funny. I wish they would have paid more attention to something like that. Um, Also, have you ever been in a theater with like a lively audience like this? Because sometimes it's the most fun I mean, there's been a couple occasions where it's been the most fun I've had in the theater, where people are just like a little too rowdy, but then you just kind of go with it.
It's usually only at movie screenings where people have already seen the movie a million times,
Right, right.
like a Rocky Horror Picture or The Room or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, the most famous one. I
Yeah.
actually experienced that to a new movie when I saw Riddick or Chronic or Pitch Black. The area that I saw it in, they just were not on board with this movie. And it was like 10 minutes in, and the shit talking started. Them tearing apart Vin Diesel in the whole movie. But I swear to God, it was like the funniest experience or one of the funnest memories I've had of being in a theater. Because the whole audience turned on the movie as if the movie was insulting them and a real person, and it was just like, this is crazy. This is so funny,
Was it Chronicles of Riddick or was it Pitch Black?
Pitch Black. Yeah, well, whatever one was the first one. They're so
Oh wow.
unmemorable. I don't know like which one it was, but I was still in high school, so it must have been Pitch Black. I think that was the first one, you
Okay.
know.
Wow.
But yeah, it was awesome. It was so cool. They're just like, this, we hate you. We don't like anything that you're doing, and we're gonna let you know about it, even though there's no one from the movie in the theater.
Amazing.
It was awesome. Awesome. I hope he hears that. I hope he hears that somehow. Vin Diesel. Yeah, we made fun of your movie relentlessly for about 2 hours. So
That theater in 2001 showed him
oh yeah. South Lansing.
10,
I
10,
don't even know if the movie's still there or
$10
theater's still
billion
there.
later in Fast and the Furious movies. Like, yeah,
Right.
I think he's fine. I don't think he really cares.
Yeah, I don't think he cares anymore.
He's crying himself to sleep on all of his I Am Groot money.
Right. Oh my God. One thing I want to talk about is, I said in the beginning, there's shit that just goes nowhere
Mm-hmm.
in this movie. And there's the supernatural side of this movie, which doesn't get explained or doesn't get elaborated on and doesn't really do anything for the movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Maggie slash Sarah, that's the same
Sarah.
character. Yeah. She has like dreams of the cult leader, and they're recurring.
She
Like she has
dreams
a
the movie.
notepad. Yeah.
Yeah, she
She
dreams
has
it possessed her, and she's like writing it down, like I'm dreaming my
yeah.
movie.
Yeah. And then it even goes so far as to be like, so when I see this, like the very beginning opens in a dream sequence of this movie, and then there's the part where Dee Wallace goes to confront the guy at the theater, and like you have the sequence where like the name changes on the marquee,
Mm-hmm.
which is like, oh, that's some supernatural shit because she's not dreaming, she's awake for this.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what's never explained? The supernatural side of this. It goes nowhere. And like
Or
it makes
why Possessor drove people crazy.
insane. Yeah. But
Crazy enough
they
to
don't
have
explain
a
it.
live reenactment of it.
And it quite frankly doesn't even need to be in the movie, because we find out the killer is Toby and not the resurrection of Lanyard.
Lanyard Gates.
Yeah. Which it would make more sense.
Terror
almost
has a new name this summer.
Yeah. It would make more sense if he like came back from the dead and was like affecting people in their dreams than the reality of just a guy being crazy because he was burned as a kid. I think it makes a little bit more sense to go all supernatural.
Well, isn't he her brother though?
Well,
Because she's Sarah Gates, and then he was burned at part of that whole theater burning down thing, right?
Right. I don't know if they're brother and sister. I know that Sarah, Maggie, her mom was killed, and then her mom, Dee Wallace, is actually her aunt. That's how it was her sister. Yes. Her sister shot Lanyard.
Right.
Which is Dee Wallace. So
she's the one that stopped him in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. And then set the movie theater on fire. I mean, they killed the guy and then set the whole thing on fire, killing another person, and then, maiming this guy's face and body. Toby, who then goes all Mission Impossible with new faces, because why not? I thought,
Man, if only Darkman's technology was that stable.
right? Yeah, they need to get together. Toby and Darkman need to get together and rule the world because, like, yeah,
Well, he
like, oh,
just needs a
here's your
face that
permanent
lasts more
face.
than 90 minutes.
Hey, let's talk about the faces for a minute. So, were they just cut off, or were they like replicated?
I believe they were replicated.
Okay, that's what I thought too.
Yeah.
Um, my next question: why is it moving? You know,
Yeah,
why does the
again, it's
face
never
move?
explained.
Yeah,
It's never explained because the first one that he pulls up and he's hanging it dangling there,
yeah,
like it moves and pulses like it's a living thing.
yeah.
But yeah, no, we just never
Never
reveal.
know.
Yeah, the secret ingredient is stem cells. That's why that's moving around
Oh,
like
oh,
that. No,
was that the thin layer of whatever he picked up from the science water?
yeah, he was ahead of his time, as it turns out, and a little ahead of the science curve there. They thought it was quackery back then in 1991, but little did they know. No, yeah, that's something that never gets addressed. Just like with D. Wallace there, where he's got her like once he captures Maggie and puts her in the dress where she can't move because
Yeah,
he's gonna kill her on stage to kind of mimic and fulfill the what his father I guess could never do. Um, he's got D. Wallace like in plaster bandage,
yeah,
and then like even but he like rolls her up like, oh, you make a wrong move, that booby trap is going to shoot her, right? Like she's going to shoot
yeah,
her and have no control over it. It's like,
yeah.
oh, that's creepy, but then like the gun's plastered over too, so like what's other
Yeah,
other than she just doesn't know how guns work, what's threatening about this situation? Because
it's unthreatening. Yeah, it's not threatening at all. It's kind of crazy. Uh, no, there's like there's tons of things that don't kind of line up at all, or that go nowhere, or don't make sense. It's really bizarre that it's so convoluted, but I still enjoy this movie. I feel like this is in the same vein as like Phantom of the Mall, Eric's Revenge. Like it's that level of movie where it's like with everything going wrong, I really shouldn't like this movie. But I do. And I think it grows on me each time I see it.
yeah, I feel like this is slightly above Phantom of the Mall. I
Well,
I
I think
don't.
the acting's a lot better,
Yeah,
you
the
know.
acting's a lot better.
I mean, just a little bit. Like the Toby when he's going crazy at the end is actually pretty scary. Like he's kind of terrifying with like what he's saying to Maggie, you know. Like
Well,
look
he
at me.
well
Look at
he
me.
he looks yeah, he looks terrifying. I mean, he's got the wire in his head, and it's just like
Yup.
he's got a really strange look to him that is creepy. Did you think this movie was creepy like when you were growing up?
Oh yeah. The end was like pretty scary as a kid, you know, like with the Freddy Krueger-esque face, you
Mm.
know. And the behavior, it's weird when you match a behavior with a certain look, right? It kind of obviously elevates what you're seeing, because like my sister and I, like, we really like the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, but we felt like popcorn got under our skin a little bit more because of the insane behavior displayed on an already weird face, you know. So, and then when he's got like half the face on and his ears are like car doors, like the sides of the face are like car doors just
Uh-huh.
flopping around, that's really creepy. Um, but yeah, it's like the Toby when he's at the end of the movie when he's about to like start murdering or fulfilling whatever thing his dad did. Uh, it's like it's almost like Jim Carrey esque, you know, where he's just kind of like his voice is undulating up and down. He's got a lot of like physical movements that are strange, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So yeah, I think everything together, it's a pretty scary thing. As an adult, it's semi weird, you know. it's
Yeah.
it's not like, oh my god, this is scary. It's just like it's so odd, you know.
Yeah, I think the closest it got to being creepy for me was when the guy was getting electrocuted, or he was about to get electrocuted. Um, because it just any time where you just like throw someone into a life or death situation and they have no time to prepare for it, like you just generate instant sympathy. And it's not even like they do anything other than he's just like like trying to reach the knob.
Yeah.
But I think it's knowing the fact that he has no chance and it sustains for as long as it does. That well, Andy's handicapped, so it's just like you have all of these things where I'm just like, oh man, that's pretty rough. Like, but they tried to do that in other areas of the movie too, because when the guy's dying on the mosquito, the teacher gets impaled on the mosquito, which I mean that's like in Halloween 4 when Michael Myers impales someone with a shotgun. Like there's just that mosquito nose is not stabbing through anything. Like it's this round
Right.
ball, but it's just like like right through him, and he's just up there just dying for like 2 minutes. It feels like,
Yeah,
and
they spend a long time letting us know that this person is suffering on their way to death, you know?
yeah, I
Like
I
they
think
spent
I think the
go
only
ahead.
time they don't do that is with the other Usher character. 'Cause she's got like the gold Usher outfit on.
Oh, yeah, but like that was the kiss that they had. That was disgusting. But then he's like moving her dead body in a conversation, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, but they didn't belabor her death the way that like
No.
every other death scene in the movie gets kind of like.
Yeah. That was the grossest part when she died. Cause
Knowing,
she's
yeah.
just yeah, she was just like, hey, she's talking to her what she thinks is still her teacher. And she's trying to get a straight A, or get an A. So
Hmm.
you know where this is going. And just she goes to kiss him and then like his face sticks to her face and like they pull apart and it's just all these strands of like face tissue, you know?
Hmm.
How gross would that be? Go to kiss someone and then their face comes with you. Just like this is disgusting. Yeah,
Yeah, I
I would
couldn't
scream too.
quite tell what was going on at first there because she's they're having that kiss and it's like, well, is he like biting her lip off or something like that
Yeah.
as it pulls away? But yeah, that's the first time where you kind of reveal the mangledness of the
Oh
character
yeah.
there.
It's gross. Cause he's just like it's like a close up of his face and he's just like wide eyed and like crazy looking,
Right.
but then on top of that, it's like, oh, here's my nose bone, or when not nose bone, it's just cartilage in there,
I
but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I did like how they acknowledged how different his voice sounded because
Yeah,
every time, because at that point you know that something's going on, that there's this Phantom of the Opera
right.
character in waiting in the wings there, and you know that the voice is different, and she comments on that like, I have a frog in my throat. Sounds like an alligator.
Right, right. Yeah, I like how they called that out.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we haven't really talked about like what you thought of this movie since you're just seeing it now. You don't have or had seen it now. You
Hmm.
don't have any nostalgia for it like I do, because I feel like nostalgia puts on a whole lot of blinders, right? Even now.
Hmm.
Uh so what are your thoughts on this? Like was it fun for you to watch? Was it like I can't wait to get to the end of this? Like what was it?
Yeah, it was all right. I mean, I was kind of left guessing as it went on, and I enjoyed the movie references, even though the electrocution one I didn't really understand like what movie that was supposed to be, but maybe that was the point of that, was just to set up the murder. Like we need this because we know we want to have this kill in here.
Yeah.
Um, it was fine. I don't think it's some forgotten classic or anything like that, but it's it was enjoyable. If you like movies of a certain type, like this one is kind of like I put it up there with a lot of like video store trash where it's like you'd watch it, you'd rent it, and like, yeah, okay, it was pretty good, and then next week you go back and maybe if they don't have the movie you're after, you pick this one out again to show some people.
Yeah, I agree with that. I actually own this movie. I have the Synapse release of this movie. Uh, it's one of those weird ones where it's like I tend to throw it in like once or twice a year. Not to like sit down and be occupied by the whole thing, because I'll throw in movies while I'm working on other things. But this is one of those movies that I'll just have in the background playing. I
Hmm.
don't know. I don't know what it is. And I think like that's what I mean when I think it's part of like nostalgia for me, right? Because it's like bringing me back to a place that's like comfortable, of like watching these like borderline dumb movies. But as a kid, you just think they're like magnificent. Like, oh my God, this is so great,
Yeah. Well, any movie was magnificent almost when you were a
Yeah.
kid, just because you're
Yeah.
seeing this thing larger than life, and
But
wow, that's what college is going to be like. That's amazing. And college is nothing
I,
like that.
right. Yeah. I think that this movie, in fact, is a reason why I wanted to open up a movie theater. Because it's just like all the fun people were having. I'm talking about the people that weren't killed in this
Yeah,
movie.
right.
Those people were not having fun. But the rest of everyone seemed like they were having a ball.
Well, and even of the characters involved, Kelly Jo Mintner's character and Nurse Ratchet, I don't think they ever really have any direct involvement with the murderer. I think they just feel like there's some rowdy show going on and people are disappearing.
Yeah.
Because really, the only thing that happens to them, or the craziest thing that happens to them, is having to deal with the rowdy girlfriend of the ex boyfriend,
Right.
who they're really nice to for some reason, even though they shouldn't be.
They're so nice to him, and he's like kind of being a shitbag.
Well,
He
even
really is.
the first thing he says in the movie, it's like, "This is our heroine," who has a very strong Phoebe Cates kind of vibes to
Yeah.
her. I felt.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, the first thing he says is like, well, yeah, I might not be around,
Because you won't have sex with me.
or let's hope I'm
Yeah.
around when that happens. Like,
Yeah. I hope I'm around when you decide to fuck me.
yeah,
Like who thinks
because
like that?
your time's
So
so much more valuable than everyone
right.
else's. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, he's kind of a shitbag. And it's like, well, why would you want to date with someone? And then like I just couldn't get like a good read on that character at all. Cause what he's like Indiana Jones at the end of the movie, all heroic, flying down from the second balcony into some boxes, but it's a good enough distraction to stop the murder from happening.
yeah.
But
And yet, your
and,
introduction to him as being a scumbag when he's sitting in the
yeah.
theater, he's kind of being a jerk to his
Yeah, he's also
other
a
girlfriend.
buffoon and probably more clumsy than I am because he managed to fall downstairs. Like, okay, I'm accident prone, but guess what I've never done? Just tripped on stairs while I'm on them and fallen down, and rolled down the stairs. I've never done that. So this guy's worse than me because he can just fall downstairs, so he's kind of an idiot too. So he's all these
It wouldn't be
things.
a horror movie without somebody tripping especially a horror movie from this era without somebody tripping because the plot required it.
Yeah, but it didn't. That's the weird thing. I guess this movie it like turns tropes on its side, because he just fell with no consequences. He just fell in the dark. And he said, "Don't step on my hand," because he
You
got his
know,
hand stepped on.
yeah, it's since you say that, it's really interesting because I'm walking back through it, and for a movie that's supposed to be kind of meta,
It is, yeah.
in turning tropes on their sides, really doesn't play up a lot of tropes or follow a lot of tropes itself.
Not at all.
I mean, there's some
None.
Phantom of the Opera parallel. I keep wanting to say Phantom of the Mall, but that's just so fresh in my mind.
I know, I do it too. I'm like, it's like Phantom. Yeah, no, yeah, I agree.
There's a lot of like Phantom of the Opera parallels here, but
There
I mean,
is.
there is and there isn't because you can't really call it a remake. But I just feel like anytime you have somebody stalking a theater, it's
You're gonna go
especially
there.
when they're like a disfigured, masked character. Like it's gonna happen. Like
Yes.
it's gonna. I don't care what your angle is. It's gonna happen.
So who did it better, Phantom of the Mall or this movie, as far as the Phantom of the Opera
You know,
stuff?
I think if I had both movies in my hand, I
Man,
think
that's a tough one
I
because
think I'd
both of
I think I'd probably put in Phantom of the Opera or Phantom of the Mall.
Phantom of the Mall.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think I'd
it's
put
a
in
hard
Phantom of the Mall.
choice. It's a hard choice. Well, what if it was Hello Mary Lou, Popcorn, or Phantom of the Mall? Which one are you gonna go with?
Well, Prom Night too.
Oh yeah, Prom Night 2. Man, that sucker deserves a Blu-ray release like nobody's business. It is incredible. Oh man, I'm so glad you made me watch that shit. You know,
I am too. It's the gift that keeps on giving.
it's just so wild. No, but these types of movies, I'm glad I've rewatched this and got accustomed to it again because I do. It's like there's certain types of movies that fail upwards, right? Like they don't do things right, but they're better for that, you know? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's like a better experience watching it or just enjoying it. These three that we just mentioned, Long Kiss Goodnight as well, get put into this like I don't even know it's what category I could call it, but it's just these movies that fail upwards to success, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have to be in a certain mindset to watch it because they're just a little off kilter.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that's part of why, like, what would be a little bit more traditional execution kind of doesn't seem to work here because the people that making it aren't following traditions.
Right.
They think they are,
Right.
but it's like someone's idea of tradition, but they just kind of interpret it a little twisted. And that's
Right. So, what are your thoughts on the very end? Because I wrestle with this a lot, right? So
scary,
let's
scary movies on the silver screen.
no, like
I hated that song.
with the crowd, yes, with the crowd at the end, right? Where
Where they
it's
just
like,
think it's part of the show.
yeah. So my question is this, I guess, if this happened, right? Say you're at a movie festival,
Uh-huh.
everyone's having a good time, except people are dying, right? And then you see something like this happen on screen. Do you think you would be fooled that it was not fake, or do you think you would go along with it thinking it was fake? Like, I guess at what point would you realize that something weird is happening?
I think the audience would be pissed that they didn't finish the movie that they were supposed to
Sure.
finish. I
Yeah.
also think if this is supposed to happen at the stroke of midnight, man, that film festival started pretty early because this is the third movie of the evening,
See, I'm confused by this now
and
that you bring it
and
up.
it was nighttime when people were showing up. Like it
Yeah,
was
so it's got to be
dark
6
out.
a.m., 7 a.m. at this point, you know?
So did they start at 6 a.m. in the morning, or because it's not 6 o'clock at nighttime? I don't know. Timeline might be a little goofy there. But to answer your question, yeah, no, I think that's. I think the audience would be pissed that the movie didn't get finished, and I think that when someone did die, they would have caught the guy because he didn't have an escape plan.
No.
He's just gonna kill her on stage, and then what?
Right.
Like, just take a bow to applause or something. Like maybe the curtain closes and then he, smoke
Right.
bomb, just runs away. I don't know, but I think that would have been like Scream 2, where as soon as he kills her,
Oh.
they would have realized that someone was dying for real, and then they would have been on his ass and probably tackled him to the
Hmm.
ground. And I don't think he would have got away with it, but
Well, you're more optimistic about society because I think society would be fooled and they thought it would have been fake. Or it's fake.
and
Like the whole thing was fake.
and they
Yeah.
all would have been filming it on Instagram and
Yep. Getting them
put,
likes,
putting it
them
up on
subscribers.
TikTok.
I mean, the irony because that's exactly what we want to have happen, right? But now we're making fun of those people for wanting that,
Well, you are.
Well, Yeah, but I also represent 50% of this podcast. So by default, what I say
yeah,
goes.
dragging me down by
I'm dragging you into
association.
this.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't have all the hate. Got to disperse it a little bit.
Yeah, I'll allow it.
Disperse. That's what I meant to say. What else? Yeah.
I liked how it didn't go straight to black. I mean, it stayed on the theater for a little bit.
Oh yeah.
I'm a fan of when movies don't just go straight to black for credits.
Me too, but you know what's pretty bad though?
That song at the end.
Hold me. That's what Maggie says to whatever his name is. Mark, right at the end. Hold me, Mark. And then the credits start going.
I think that is up there with the Monster Squad for like, I like the movie, but I really hate the song in the credits.
Oh, the Monster Squad rap?
Yeah.
That's like a musician came in who didn't know rap existed and was just told about rap, and then they made a song that day. Like, this is what rap is. You just talk over music, It's a little bit more than that.
It writes itself.
Yeah.
Yep. Well,
that
on that
was
note.
The thing, though. Yeah, on that note. Saturday night at the movies. All right. This was awesome. I like this movie a lot. So might not be for everybody though. Who knows? I mean, Synapse put it out. It's got to be liked by some people, But anyways, I don't have anything more.
Until next week, then?
Yes, until next week. Well, I'll have more then. I'll have more next week. Yeah, I'll have more next week. So come back for that.
All right.